everyone. I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU Channel 2 News, and I'm joining you with this Voters Forum, a forum of candidates running for a seat in the Contra Costa County Sanitation District. Today's forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Election Division, CCTV, and the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley and West Contra Costa. We are holding this roundtable via Zoom, and we are taping it in the CCTV studio. I do want to mention that all the candidates do have name cards underneath them when you watch them on the screen, and that has their campaign email address on it. So if you have other questions after this is over, you want to contact them, that's a great way to do it. So let's introduce you to the candidates running for the seat on the Sanitation District. We have Barbara Hockett, Tad Pollecki, Paul Causey, Jim Negelly, and then we have two candidates who were not able to join us, Nathan Jaquez and Mariah Lauritsen. So we're going to begin this forum with asking the candidates to introduce themselves and just give us a little bit about them if you haven't gotten to know them yet. And let's start off with Barbara Hockett.
Hi there. I'm Barbara Hockett, and my background is in nursing. I teach 3 courses in nursing for Cal State East Bay. And I served actually on the Central Sand Board for 20 years and have since been off for 8 years. And I'm very interested in joining the board again.
All right, Tad Pollecki, will you introduce yourselves to the people watching?
Good afternoon. My name is Tad Pollecki, and I am the current Central Sand President Pro Tem. I have over 43 years of experience in the wastewater engineering fields, and 8 of those as a Central Sand board member, 25 as a former employee of Central Sand, and 10 years in the private sector. I hold master's degrees in sanitary engineering or wastewater engineering, as well as a master's in business administration, and I have a bachelor's in civil/environmental engineering. I'm also a registered professional civil engineer in the state of California.
All right, Paul Causey.
Good afternoon, and thanks for doing this. My name is Paul Causey. I've been in the water and wastewater business for almost 50 years. This is my 50th year. I'm currently on the board of directors right now and have been for 8 years. Prior to that, I was general manager of several wastewater districts. I worked for 3 cities and over 33 years. Since I retired, and I've been failing at retirement since 2005, I have been working with public agencies on regulatory compliance, collection system management and operations, and I've worked for almost 100 public agencies in California in the last 17 years. I'm a registered civil engineer, and I love what I do, and I'd love to get back and continue my support on the board for to bring to the board and to future generations sustainable and environmentally effective wastewater and recycled water programs for our kids and for their kids. So thank you very much.
And James Negelly.
Hi, my name is Jim Negelly. Thank you for having me on today. I would have never guessed I'd been on this board for 24 years. And every time the 4 years runs around, I decide to run again because I feel like the work's not done. I think we've done a very good job over the last couple of decades. As Barbara indicated, she was on the board with me for quite some time. And it's become a lifelong, not a career, because I have my own career in refuse and recycling. And it's just become a part of my life. And I enjoy the district and really try to bring my everyday life to the district and help it any way I can to be safe for our employees, for the people in our jurisdictions, and just do the best I can to make the best decisions for the public. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so just so for the folks watching at home, how we're going to run this, we've got an hour to chat, which means we're not going to hold people to super specific timing during the bulk of this until the end when we have closing statements. We want to give you guys a chance to really express your viewpoints and on the issues and what really needs to be talked about in terms of the sanitation district. So we'll be mindful of the length of the answers, but we don't want to be super strict so far, unless you guys make us get a little stricter. So let's talk about this, because I think the sanitation district is its priorities, its education, it's really giving people an idea of really what the situation is in front of them. And so let's talk about priorities and really where you see the role of the sanitation district going forward. Tad Pollecki, will start start with you in terms of what does this position, what should it mean to the voters?
What it should mean to the voters. Well, our agency, our mission is to protect the public health and the environment by properly and safely collecting, treating, and disposing and reusing recycled water. And that's very important when you take into consideration right now that the COVID-19 pandemic and how we're protecting that, making sure that that doesn't impact our public. We also have a very large capital improvement program that we need to implement over the next 20 years. We're looking at $2 to $3 billion in capital investments. And we're a high performance organization. And we pride ourselves on customer service. And one of my key goals is to continue that level of customer service. We also are in the water business, so to speak, because 35 million gallons of wastewater come through our plant. That's 35 million gallons of recycled water that we can distribute to our customers. And given the changing climate conditions, that water could be very valuable. Thank you.
Pollecki, what do you think the most important priority is and the role of the sanitation district moving forward is?
Well, currently, I think looking, as Tad said, to our capital improvement program, sanitary districts and this particular district has over $4.5 billion worth of assets, either in the ground in pipelines or at a treatment plant and the hazardous waste facility. Those facilities are aging and are to the point where they need to be replaced in large part. So we have a very active program that's going to require substantial funds. So we're going to need to manage our overall operations and maintenance costs as well as our capital costs to be cost effective and efficient. But I do think long term we also need to look at and try to work very diligently on sustainable sources of energy for our treatment plant. The treatment plant is one of the largest consumers of energy in the county. And as a consequence, we need to work more towards sustainable energy uses like solar, wind, and those kinds of things. And so I'll be a strong proponent for that going forward. But I do think that it's important for us as we replace assets and look to the future that we are looking for efficient technologies, for technologies that enhance our overall capabilities to operate efficiently and economically. And so we'll be looking to try to support all of those kinds of things. And I think my 50 years and the fact that I've worked for almost 100 agencies across California will significantly help in understanding and probably providing innovative solutions to the future as we move forward with our capital expansion and capital replacement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Jim Negelly, your priorities?
Priorities, I've said it so much, it almost sounds like a buzzword, but we're here to protect the public health. Like Tad indicated, we deal with upwards of 50 million gallons of sewage, which isn't a pretty word, every single day. And with that comes the opportunity to provide recycled water for the communities. I've always pushed that. I wish we could do a lot better, but we're slowly getting a grasp on getting that done. And we have a household hazardous waste facility that started right when I got on the board. And believe it or not, I've been in the waste industry myself. I have never seen the numbers from the hazardous waste facility, go down. That's because we keep getting it. And then there's a highlight of Central San that we're keeping that out of the wastewater, subsequently keeping it out of our recycled water and the water going out into the bay. So that's a huge thing that we do down at the district. So protecting the public health comes in a lot of ways. It's our employees. It's the effluent that goes out to the river. It is the recycled water and keeping all that hazardous waste out of the landfills. Thank you.
And Barbara Hockett, your priorities?
So I think my priorities are to support the efforts that have gone into the development of the master plan, because I do see cost savings in the future by implementing and growing our solar energy resources, as well as fine-tuning the treatment plant so that energy is used more efficiently in the future. Because of the master plan, we're going to need to replace a lot of our assets. And I think that the plan is awesome because it takes us out 20 years in increments. But here's the other challenge, I think. My background is in public health, and I understand that the foundation of wastewater treatment is to protect the public health. And so I'm a strong believer in the fabulous education programs that we have an opportunity to deliver to the public and to the students in our schools so that we can embrace the issues, not only with regard to wastewater treatment, but also the environment.
So yeah, we've talked about some big picture issues here in terms of just the public health and the master plans and making sure that the long term looks good. How has COVID, if it has really affected that? We talk about budget, we talk about financial status. Has it really impacted, and what do you think is going to be the biggest impact moving forward as we try to make sure that the long term looks good for us all? Paul Causey, I'll let you start with your answer.
Sure. I think that's a question, and quite frankly, it's one of my concerns going forward. I don't think we're going to find that after the pandemic leaves that it's going to be business as usual. I think we're going to see changes in our employee composition. I think we're going to see changes in the way employees work. There's going to be more work from home, those kinds of things. We're going to find that we may become an agency that can predict some of these public health issues through our wastewater. And so I think it's going to look much different in the future than it has in the past, both for our employees, for the public, and for even the board of directors. We've now operated for almost 6 months electronically over Zoom. Are we going to continue to operate that way or not? So I think there's going to be many changes in the formal way of doing business as we did in the past. And we're going to have to look very much forward to and work collaboratively with our employees, with customers and others to ensure that the great level of service that we've always provided will continue on in maybe a different format, but it continue on at the same level that we've provided it in the past. So I think that's the big thing.
Do you expect a financial impact from that, though, a financial hit from the COVID, making that more complicated?
It may impact our capital program and have to extend it out. We've already this year provided a rate subsidy this year to the residential and schools, totaling about $5.1 million out of a total of $170 million budget. So I expect also going forward next year that we're going to see a reduction in our sewer service charges as a result of our sewer service charges are based on water consumption from a year ago. And so I think we're going to have to watch those things very closely. I think the board of directors is going to have to look at mid-year budgets to ensure that we don't spend any more than we have to, and that the revenues that we're receiving are going to cover our overall costs. So I don't think the final decision on revenues has been made at this point. I think it's going to take us 2 or 3 years to really understand that, but I do think it's going to impact long-term our capital program and how quickly we can move in and through that. So those are the things that I see happening. Thank you for the questions.
All right. Jim Negelly, what do you think in terms of COVID's impact and how it really affects the short term and the long term when we're talking about budget and financial health?
Well, when you talk about essential workers, we're talking about Central San. And I think the district did an amazing job because when we all had COVID laid in our laps, we all thought it was a common flu and not that big a deal. And then, it hit really, really hard. We had a lot of people working from home, but there's tens of millions of gallons of effluent coming out of that plant every day, and we had to run. And we had a couple of hiccups, but as a result, we learned a lot. We learned a lot that people can work from home. We have a lot of essential people that have to work at the district. When you talk about the long-term financial hit to the district, we don't know what that is. We know we're going to lose on the commercial side because a lot of it's based on water usage. Residential's not so much. But until this all pans out, we're not going to know the true financial hit to the district. My personal opinion is it's going to be there, but it's not going to wipe us out. And as a result, our capital improvement budget might need to be tweaked a little bit, but I'm hoping for the best. I think we've got at least another quarter to dealing with it and getting back to what we all call the new normal. And, until the end, we're really not going to see it. But the good news is that district literally has run flawlessly since this hit. And we've had no issues, no spills of any concern, no big mechanical problems at the plant. And we're rolling along like we always have. So I'm proud of everybody down at the district.
All right, Barbara Hockett, do you agree with that assessment financially, budget-wise, COVID? How does it all play in for you?
So what I see is when the district is at a place where they can invite employees back into the buildings. Their challenge is going to be social distancing and also preparing the workplace with barriers so that they can continue to work and be productive and still social distance. But one of the cool things about COVID in wastewater is that you find the RNA from COVID. And so wastewater isn't really contagious, but it's an awesome tool to be able to track where COVID is in your community. And so there is a partnership with many wastewater districts in the Bay Area and across the country doing just that. There is fabulous technology that they've implemented to track COVID, and they can predict, would you believe, 5 days ahead of it coming in, being surfaced in the community, that it's in the wastewater. And so it can be an incredible opportunity to be able to do some predicting and also some preparation for an outbreak using wastewater.
All right. The terms, the cool thing about COVID, we don't hear very often. So really an interesting thing to point out. Tad Pollecki, how do you feel about COVID and our financial situation with the sanitation district?
Well, first, the good news. Wastewater treatment has been very effective at treating pandemics such as COVID, SARS, H1N1 throughout history. And so our real focus is making sure that the employees that run that facility and keep it running are protected. So we provided expenditures on personal protective equipment, hygiene, separation. And as Barbara pointed out, when we bring people back, we're going to incur some costs associated with infrastructure improvements to help isolate our employees. We're also, from a financial perspective, looking at some reductions in our interest rate earnings of about $1.4 million this next year, because interest rates are basically close to zero. And so that's an impact. We've reduced our capacity fees because we expect to see some reduction in building. But on the good side, we've seen $4 million already in bid savings because we have a more competitive bid climate. And we are also, although we gave $5 million break to our ratepayers by not implementing this year's rate increase, we also came in under budget $5 million this year. So it's kind of an offset. So we're trying to help the 14% of our population that's unemployed and our businesses. As far as going forward into the future, we're not going to know until 1 or 2 years out what the real impacts are going to be, because only time's going to tell what happens to our commercial businesses, our restaurants, and whether they're going to be able to supply, they supply a certain percentage of our dollars. And as Paul said, we have the ability to defer projects and delay them to help make ends meet. Thank you.
Okay, and so I'm going to pivot off of that, and I'll let Mr. Negelly answer this next question, because certainly as you're preparing for what the unknown, right? We don't know what the impact's going to be. We do know that a lot of work has been done at the district to try to address pension plan shortfalls and different things and to get overall health. So then how do you prioritize? How do you protect what needs protected? What do you protect first if there is a shortfall that you have to address? I mean, where are your financial priorities in terms of keeping staffing the same, keeping if an impact is negative?
I'm not really sure about the question, Claudine, but if I can take a jab at it, our priorities obviously are our public and our employees, and it's the theme of everybody's comments on this forum today, and that's our number one priority. And getting the effluent into the plant and out of the plant, as we always do, not having spills. And protecting our employees, where we have to regulate that of who's in that plant and who's not, and we can't shut the doors. It's not an option. And we have had very few issues since COVID happened. And like I said before, that the district has handled those extremely well. So when you talk about priorities, priority number one is the health and safety of our community and our employees. And you can go down the list after that. CIBs, capital improvement budgets, we have recycled water, like I indicated before, and all these other things that we work on all the time down at the district. But number one priority is I don't know where you live, Claudine, but is your health and welfare. and everybody that works in that district. That's, to me, is top
Oh
priority.
yeah, let me follow up on that to make it more clear. Like, I think you guys have all agreed that, the health and safety of the public is first, and your employees, to make sure when they come back everything's safe. Taking that and putting it aside and saying, okay, but now we have these projects. These are our wish list, right? If we had all the money in the world, here's what we would tackle. Here's what we would prioritize. If some things have to wait, I guess the question is, which things would you put separate from health and safety of the public and the health and safety of your employees? Which things could wait if it needed to, or which things can't?
Well, that's a decision made daily there of what projects can we push out if we absolutely have to. We've replaced over 40 miles of 1,500-mile system recently, and things like that we can test, and camera lines. There's a lot of things we could push off. We could not strap a lot of money to recycled water right now, although we all are backing it. We could slow that down. We cannot slow down our hazardous waste facility because that's keeping it right out of the sewer or out of the landfill. And that, to me, that's a priority. So projects can be pushed. We've done it in the past. But you have to take a real hard look. We've done a lot of planning and future planning to know what we have to tackle. And our CIB program is quite large. We've managed over since 2013 to keep it almost flat. It's an amazing accomplishment, but we have infrastructure that's going bad, and at some point you have to replace it, and it's not a guessing game. You can get really close, but you never really know when that pipe's going to burst, and we take a lot of pride in keeping that place in top-notch shape.
Yeah, certainly have covered enough water main breaks and pipes bursting to know that. Barbara Hockett.
Not ours, okay?
Just in cities that shall not be named in this discussion. Barbara Hockett, let's talk about, what projects do you think maybe could be put off? Do you agree that there are certain ones that have to go first, obviously?
Well, so here's I think what we need to know is that Central San has an incredible program called asset management. And throughout that program, they evaluate constantly the treatment plant, pump stations, the infrastructure, the furnaces, the sedimentation tanks. All of that equipment is assessed frequently. And you can adjust your expenditures based on what needs to be replaced and or repaired. For instance, the furnaces, we have 2 furnaces there, and they alternate in their use. The lifespan of them is about 25 years. And when you shuttle back and forth, you can increase that lifespan of that piece of equipment. And so you can do a lot of juggling and buy time if you're looking at a shortfall.
Right. Tad Pollecki, your thoughts on, do you find that things are easily movable in terms of if need be, you could put it on hold?
Well, first, the good news side of the story. The district is in very good financial shape. We've got our pensions under control, having reduced the unfunded liabilities by 50%. We reduced our healthcare costs by $6 million on an annual basis. We've had 6 years of flat O&M budget, and we're still below the average for a sewer service charge in the entire Bay Area. We have also pursued SRF loans that are going to allow us to get very cheap money, half the commercial interest rate, which will save us $20 to $30 million. We are looking at maximizing the life of our equipment, as Barbara pointed out. And we have, our bids have been coming in very, very favorably to us. So we have lots and lots of money. We're in much better financial shape today than we were in 2012. And so when we start looking at projects, every project in our capital budget is prioritized and given a ranked score. So we've already do the homework determining which project's going to go forward. But we also have a lot of flexibility with our collection system, which represents half of the expenditures that we're looking at. That is right now the expenditures that are based on a theoretical model, assuming a certain life. And I've run the capital program for many years, and I found that the collection system pipes can go for much longer than the 50 or 75 years that are assumed. And so that is where I would be focusing, because the empirical evidence doesn't support theoretical.
Okay. Paul Kazi, your thoughts on programs that could be pushed, programs that can't?
Well, I think all of the information that's been provided by the other three candidates is clearly appropriate. But I do have one other item. The district also maintains an annual 10-year financial evaluation. So we're looking out 10 years from now for rates, for charges, both in the O&M program and the capital program. And so we have a sense of where things are going into the future. And I think that or that rolling financial plan is part of our annual budget process. And so every year when we get our updates in January, they get the budget in April and May, we're able to look at what the impacts over the next 10 years are going to be. And I think we look, as Tad indicated, every project in the capital program is rated and valued based upon the master plan, and prioritization has been set for any and all of those projects. I would generally agree that probably the collection system is the area that has the easiest area to maybe delay things a little bit further. But I think we've also looked at, as Tad indicated, over the last 5 years for everything we can do to reduce costs. And moving our employees into a different medical program, which saved us $6 million a year. I think those are the kinds of things that this board has been very good at looking at, establishing priorities for, and going through. And I'm sure if you talk to the general manager and the finance staff, everything that goes through the finance committee and the board of directors during budget time gets lots and lots of questions. Lots and lots of information is exchanged and traded during that process. And this year, the budget process with COVID was a very different process. And so different in the sense that we tried to predict what was going to happen a year from now. And we haven't finished all of those things, but that financial plan and the priorities of the capital program allows us annually to look at and correct for things that have happened in the short-term past, but also look toward what impact that will have on the long-term future of the district. So those are the things that I see and the areas that I think might be allowed to be impacted by any revenue losses.
Okay, fantastic. So I've been lucky enough to moderate this forum for this race before, and one of the things I always thought is how much common ground you guys have. You work well even in a race against each other. So I do want to ask you, for the voters as well, as they're kind of trying to go through this and figure out how to differentiate you guys from each other, what makes you different, and what part of your vision that you think is unique to you, and why you should get that seat on the board in the sanitation district? Barbara Hockett, let's start with you.
Well, so from my point of view, when I look at the board, I'm looking for representation of the ratepayers in our service area. And I'm looking at the board in terms of not only gender, but expertise. And I believe that we have a lot of expertise on our board in terms of engineering and finance. But I don't see families represented, and I don't see public health represented, and I don't see families represented who are impoverished, who need to switch from their septic system to connect to the sewer, and they don't have enough money to do that. And so that's what I look at in terms of the diversity on a board. Does it represent all the ratepayers and all the situations that you can come up with? No, but I think it could look better.
Okay. And Tad Pollecki, your thoughts on what makes you distinctive as part of this board?
I think I'm going to focus on my 25 years working with Central San. And when I was there, I was the capital program manager as well as the capital projects division manager, responsible for all of the infrastructure capital improvements that we've done over that 25 years that I was there. And that's in excess of $500 million worth of capital improvements. So I understand the district. I understand capital budgeting. I probably know the facilities, both collection system, pumping stations, and treatment plants better than anyone. And given that we're going to be looking at $2 to $3 billion in capital improvements over the next 20 years, I believe that I can bring the appropriate level of guidance and oversight to make sure that we do that properly. I'll give you an example. If we can just reduce our cost by 5% by looking at wants versus needs and making sure that it's needs that we're addressing, that's $150 million, $7.5 million a year. And I feel that's what I bring, the primary thing that I bring to this board.
Paul Cosby, how do you distinguish yourself from the others in the field?
Well, I think I do distinguish myself by, I believe, being the oldest candidate for the board and with the longest experience. My experience has been hugely broad, both in the state and across the United States. I've worked for the International Bank on capital program planning. Did my first asset management program in 1985. I served on the Asset Management Steering Council across the United States for several years. And I've done very innovative projects. And the most recognizable one was the power plant cooling project at the Delta Diablo Sanitation District when I was there. It was an innovative project at the time for cooling water to be discharged into the San Joaquin River. I was told at the beginning of that project that we could never accomplish that because the regional board wouldn't allow it. It was innovative. It was very innovative. And it required us to look at things that had never been done before, both with the energy markets as well as with wastewater treatment and recycled water treatment. And so I bring a very strong innovation. I bring experience of about 100 public agencies. So I've seen very different operations and alternatives to operations. And I think that experience across this broad sector is hugely important for the long-term benefit of this district in moving forward. So thank you. Those are the things I think I bring to the table.
You're muted, Claudine.
I got it. Mr. Negelly, how do you distinguish yourself from the rest of the field?
Well, as I listen to all the other candidates going up last, I'll just say, Claudine, that I'm better than they are. So I had to throw that joke in there. No, I always think that I work for a private company and I work for a public agency. And a lot of what I do in my regular job corresponds to what happens at Central San. And people like to differentiate between a public and a private agency. And to me, they're both businesses. And we have to run them like a business and make good, solid business decisions. And I live it every day. I deal with over 100 employees every day. I push a lot of material in and out of my own plant. My regular job, I call it, and then my secondary job at Central San, I just to try to apply that. I'm not going to be offensive here, but it's not uncommon knowledge that our board is made up of either ex-employees and they're all engineers. And we joke on the dais about, I'm the only outsider. And I think that's important that you have outsiders, not necessarily being on the outside, just having a different perspective to bring to that board to make those decisions. And I have to say, my regular job really helps me at Central San because it puts things in a regular perspective, whereas the public gets to see us in a different way.
Yeah, and let's actually talk about the public in terms of reaching them. I mean, certainly this is a big election year. You have a lot of people interested. We have a big get out the vote campaign. And we always say that, for the local races, that's always very important as people kind of, really weigh in. How has it been for you guys as candidates to reach the public? It's always, a challenge and even more challenging as everything is in these times right now. And what are you hearing from them in terms of, we can talk about a lot of issues, but what are the main issues that you think are weighing on the minds of the folks that you guys are talking to? And Tad Pollecki, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. This is very different from any of the past campaigns that I've been involved in. I used to be able to go knock on doors and talk to people, go to open forums, meet people, discuss issues, go to city council meetings. Can't do that now. And so our outreach is quite a bit limited. I've been focusing on using social media and things like this telecast interview that we're doing now to reach out to folks. What is important to people? They want to know that they're safe. that we're not going to, that we're going to continue to protect the public health and the environment for them. And they want to know that, we're doing everything to ensure that we can continue doing that. For example, our extensive capital improvement program that's going to address that. They also want to see our using recycled water. We've put in a household or residential fill station, one of the most popular things that we've ever done during the drought. And they want to see that because we could be in another drought very easily with climate change and everything. So those are some of the ideas.
All right, Paul Kazi, what are you hearing? How are you reaching the people that you're trying to talk to, and what are the issues that you feel like are weighing mostly on them?
Well, having young children, my kids are 35 to 40. What I'm hearing from young couples is the challenge of trying to work and have young kids at home, and how do we deal with that? And I think that's the challenge for our employees. Our employees, in many cases, have young kids at home, and how do you balance those things? And I think the board's done a pretty good job of trying to balance that through this COVID process. We've provided the opportunity for people who have critical conditions to go home. We've provided work from home. We've tried to recognize the needs of our own employees with regard to how this pandemic has impacted and affected them. We've tried to keep them whole in terms of the salaries that they're receiving and their benefits. And so I think right now the big issue really is, how does everybody feel? I have to agree with Tad. There's not a whole lot of outside campaigning going on. It's mostly being done across the internet, or we're relying on old time contacts that we've had in the past from the outreaches that we've done. And the one thing that I would say that I think has been very positive for the district since I've been on the board is that there has been substantial outreach by the board in terms of trying to engage the public, trying to get them to better understand who we are and how we operate, why it's so expensive to do wastewater treatment. And we've initiated several new outreach programs. We have an academy that we put together every year that I think is hugely positive in informing the public for where our dollars go, how they're spent, and those kinds of things. So in large part, unfortunately, we're going to have to, through this election, rely on many of those contacts and outreaches that took place prior to the pandemic. But we have to worry about our employees. We have to worry about the people that are at home. And I think the board's tried to recognize this, for instance, the schools and the impacts that this COVID has had on the school operations. And so we've given them a reduction in costs there. But I think all of those kinds of things are going to impact going forward. And the hope is that when we get to the election, that the electorate will have enough information through the social medias, through this kind of interview, through the endorsements that we've been able to acquire, to really understand who we are and how we operate. So thank you.
Jim Negelly, how's the challenge been for you in terms of trying to reach folks and talk to people and really get a handle on how people are feeling and what they're concerned about?
Well, today's number one concern is COVID, and we got a presidential election coming up, which really overshadows when I have to run, usually, because we don't have to do a whole lot of campaigning because everybody's focus is in all of the other races. And I'd like to say that's a good thing, because I've always felt the Central San, as large of a district as it is, we fly underneath the radar. In that we have very few problems, we don't have any plant blowups, we don't spill sewage all over the place. We have very few problems. And like I said, I'm proud of that. And I try to reach people grassroots, like Paul had indicated, with, you got to go back to the old black book and start digging in and have everybody contact their friends to talk about you running for the district again. And I come from a long family line of politicians, and I truly don't think I am one. My dad got me into this mess 24 years ago, and I'm still here. So, asked me or thought it would be a good idea for me to run, and I did, because I never said no to him. And here I am all these years later. So he was a very wise man, and he always felt that I brought a little different perspective, especially for what I do every day in my regular job, to the district. So it's interesting. You don't see any Central San campaign signs. I drive up the street to my house every day, and there's more council signs than I can count on 10 hands. And we just typically don't do that. And in the past I have early on, but it's really, we're all pretty well known because we've all been around for quite some time.
Yeah. Barbara Hockett, do you feel like it's been a struggle to talk to people, or do you feel like you've got a list of people that you can go to, or different ways to reach
Well,
groups?
so yeah, obviously it's a challenge, and you have to pull out other ways to communicate with people. I feel very fortunate in that my contacts throughout the county have been developed over a long time. And in teaching community health nursing, my students go to Monument Crisis Center. I have 10 students that are doing COVID testing with the county. I have students at Hospice of the East Bay, and they do a community engagement class where they are reaching out everywhere. And and I think that my relationships with nonprofits and other organizations in the county has helped me. But what is a big challenge, as Jim said, is wastewater and central sand's a well kept secret. And actually, it's kind of a cool thing because we're not in the newspapers very often, if at all. And it's a very well run treatment plant. And so you don't have that kind of advertising and marketing, which is a good thing. And so your outreach has to be done in a different way. And so my outreach is being done on Facebook, and I'm teaching the public about COVID, household hazardous waste, the pharmaceutical drop-off program, which I started many years ago, and the services that we offer. And so that is my approach to this campaign.
All right. Yes, they say what no news is good news. So if you guys aren't aren't making headlines, it's because things are trucking along fairly smoothly. You guys have all talked about your many years of experience and how it's kind of helped in these troubled times. Although I find that in my job, I look at my job, even though I've been in it for many years as well, in a new way, simply because COVID and fires and drought and all of these things have working from home and obviously have changed things. I wonder what your biggest surprise has been in all of this, in terms of, and you look at the last 6 months as the candidate you were in January versus the candidate you are today, and how it has maybe changed you in this. Has it changed anything in how you'd approach it? Paul Kazi, let's let you answer first.
Wow. How has it changed me? Well, I have to tell you, I tear up when I see the things on the TV of people and patients in hospitals that can't see their families. When I see pictures of people standing outside a hospital room with their hands on the windows trying to communicate. When I see and I hear of people dying that haven't been able to talk to their families, it really strikes me right in the heart of me in terms of the things that we're doing and how important they are, how important those human contacts are. Over the last 6 months, the thing I have missed the most is the ability to go out and speak to people, talk to them face to face. And that thing, I think, is really one of the things that I found are hugely there. And I have to tell you, when I retired 17 years ago, after about 9 months, my wife said I needed a hobby. And I said working was my hobby. And it turned out that working and meeting people and interacting with people is hugely important. And so I think over the last 6 months, I've learned and found that I really miss all of those contacts. Why am I running again for another 4-year term? Because I still want to give back. I still want to meet all the great people that I run into. And hopefully we can meet it in a different way than we have in the past, but hopefully we can get back to looking and being in the same room. And so those are some of the things that I've learned over the last 6 months that I think are hugely important and have forced me to really recognize just how important the world was before we got into this situation. Thank you.
Yeah, I do miss being in the same room as well. Jim Negelly, let's ask you. I mean, even that term essential worker you used earlier before, I mean, that was something that we never really talked about, pre-COVID, and now we definitely see all the essential services that surround us. How has the last 6-7 months changed you as a candidate?
Well, one thing that's come clear to me is, people like Central San and since I work in the industry as refuge workers, uh, you know, they're the ones out digging the ditch every day, is proud and appreciative I am of fire departments and police departments and everybody else, ambulance drivers that's still out there dealing with people, especially when it got really thick with COVID a couple of times because it started coming back and it came hit us again. Is that like I said in my beginning statements, the district's got to run, and it's hard enough to run it day to day and keep it fiscally responsible and everybody safe. And then COVID hits, and again, like I said, the place has got to run. The garbage has got to get picked up, the recycling's got to get picked up, and sewage has got to get picked up, for a better way to say it. And you can't stop that. And we have to keep those people safe. So it's hit me hard because I live it every day. I live it on Central Sand to try to keep everybody healthy. And we've made some tough decisions over the last year. Fortunately, we've made the right decisions. And the facility's still running. We're not running for the woods. We're standing proud and getting the job done.
All right. Barbara Hockett, and how has the last 6 months or so really changed your views as a candidate, if they have?
I decided to run in January because, I just miss it. I miss public service. And I guess for many other reasons, I wanted to run again. But yes, this has been a big challenge because I teach community health nursing, where I have 32 students in 2 sections, and a course in community health nursing. And out of all of the faculty that are teaching, I don't think anyone has clinical placements other than me. And that's because I had community connections and I sought out opportunities for my students. And so, yeah, it was a major change, and it was a lot of work to try and pull that off. But I also, as you just heard from me, Claudine, COVID, you have to find the bright side, and you have to dig deep, trust me, to do that. Because emotionally, it's a big challenge living on your own and by yourself. But in taking a look at all of the public health webinars, the education that you can get is incredibly valuable, like being able to use applications and research and laboratory studies to detect COVID in the wastewater, to give your community a heads up before it shows up. And so by doing that, I found more of a purpose, and I could utilize that information to maybe help make a difference. And so you just have to dig deep to find the bright side that I think you can.
All right, thank you. And Tad Pollecki, let's let you give us your thoughts on how you're a different candidate, if you are, from now versus what you were before the COVID hit.
Yes. Well, I think all of us are different people just because of the heartache, the loss of life as a result of COVID-19. And, the fact that we can't socialize like we used to, the loss of comradeship, and, being with your family and things. That's an important one. But what I've learned is that, as Jim said, how important our essential workers are, and how important that you have good people to provide that service. And I've learned to be thankful for the people that are in the grocery store stocking the shelves, the people at the banks, people that are maintaining our power plants, picking up our garbage, running our wastewater facilities, have a greater appreciation of what they contribute. I've also learned that people are very adaptable. Look at what happened, and we're still here. We're surviving, and we're going to make it. And the last thing that I wanted that really hit me hard was when I was going around and seeing all the businesses and all the people that are out of work, and the unemployment rate's up at 14%, and people taking huge pay cuts just to get by. And and I'm sitting there and going, whoa, it's fortunate, that a lot of, some of us, survived that pretty good. And so that's part of the reason why I led the charge on the board to reduce the rates this year, to forego them, so we could do a little bit to help out.
All right. Well, we have reached that point in this discussion where we are getting to our closing statements. And so we want to thank you for answering the questions we've had so far. And we want to talk about our timers. We're each going to have 2 minutes to give a closing statement. We do have timers standing by to let you know when those 2 minutes might be getting close to being up. So when you see that yellow card from our timers, that means that you have 30 seconds left, and a red card will mean that you need to stop speaking. So we want to let you start with your closing statements. And Jim Negelly, let's start with you.
Just running for Central San again. It's our acronym for Central Contra Costa Sanitary District. I've been there a long time. I feel like I still have some work to do. I think the district is run extremely well. I think we have a good board there now. We really always have. And they've made good fiscal, responsible decisions. And we're getting hit with COVID these days. That is completely throwing everybody a curveball. We've made it through it so far with shining colors, and we're going to continue to do that because we don't know what's going to happen next. We have a lot of work to do in the next 4 years. We have a lot of improvements we've got to make, but number one is keeping our public and our employees safe and healthy and keeping the plant running because there's a lot of essential workers out there, and Central San is one of the top ones on the list because as much I don't want to use the bad word sewage, but effluent that we get into the plant is extremely important that we treat that and get it out safely. And I'm running again because I think that I can bring what I have in my regular day, every day to that district and make good decisions. So thank you.
And Barbara Hockett, your closing statement.
I'd like to continue my work on the board supporting our pollution prevention program, household hazardous waste program, and future legislation to allow wastewater districts to purvey recycled water. I'm proud of the pharmacy drop-off program, which provides a safe, secure place for unused and expired medications, keeping them out of homes and our water. I'm encouraged by the master plan, which has identified how to increase energy efficiency and sustainability. The district's resource recovery focus will help us make full use of the wastewater treatment process from beginning to end and use the resources we produce to help the environment. My background in public health and the perspective I bring to the board will add to the board's balance, which will result in more comprehensive decision-making for our ratepayers and our district personnel. Thank you.
Tad Pollecki, your closing statement.
Hi, my name is Tad Pollecki, and I am the current President Pro Tem for the Central San Board of Directors. Do you like the way the sanitary district is running? From an environmental perspective, we have protected the public health and the environment from COVID-19. We have 22 years of full regulatory compliance, the longest in the state of California. We have significantly reduced the number of overflows within our service area to where we're one of the lowest in the Bay Area. And we have collect 2 million pounds every year annually in household hazardous waste. From a fiscal perspective, we've paid down our unfunded liabilities by more than 50%. We have maintained a flat budget for the last 6 years. We've reduced our healthcare costs by $6 million annually, and we still have one of the lowest overall sewer service, below the average for sewer service charge. From a asset management perspective, we've developed the comprehensive master plan, which lays out $2.2 to $3 billion worth of capital improvements over the next 20 years. We have a detailed asset management program, and we've even almost completed our entire treatment plan with respect to seismic reinforcement, having our last major project bidding shortly. From a sustainability perspective, we have a 20 million gallon per day recycled water exchange project that we're working with Contra Costa Water District and Valley Water. We have established commercial and residential fill stations, and we're looking at a 1.75 megawatt facility. So if you like the way the sanitary district is running, if you want proven, knowledgeable leadership that is focused on providing protection, public health, and the environment, and ready to take on the challenges, please support myself, Tad Pollecki, and my fellow incumbents, Paul Kazi and Jim Negelly. Thank you.
And Paul Causey, your closing statements.
Sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I think it's very important for the public in these times, to be able to see us personally and to understand where we're coming from and what we're doing. My hope over the next 4 years is to, number one, recover from the pandemic and work with the district board, the district employees, and the district customers to help define whatever the new form of wastewater and recycled water programs are going to look like. It's a new paradigm. COVID has changed the way we do our business. I'm looking forward to advocating for more use of sustainable energy sources. I'm going to advocate strongly for the expansion of our overall recycled water program, which Tad talked a little bit about. And that recycled water program needs to be used wisely and effectively so that we use our very important water resource more than once before it's disposed of in the river. I also want to assure the public of the cost-effective and most advanced technologies that we're going to use in our renewal and replacement program, and as we replace all the assets that we currently have. And finally, I want to advocate and expand our outreach programs so customers and the public really understands how important this program is to their well-being, to the economy of the Contra Costa County, and of the public health for all of our citizens. So I'm running to hopefully use my broad, long experience and my professional expertise to craft solutions that will assure the next generations, our kids and our kids' kids, of sustainable, environmentally effective wastewater, and recycled water programs that are cost effective and efficient. So I appreciate very much the opportunity. I hope that you will all, as you begin to evaluate your overall voting rights this time, we'll look forward to bringing and returning to the board of directors a strong balance, understanding of the wastewater business. And I would hope that I can ask nicely for your vote going forward. Thank you very much.
Yes, and I'd like to thank all of you for participating in this forum for the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District Board of Directors. We have 6 candidates on the ballot for 3 at-large seats. The candidates joining us today: Barbara Hockett, Tad Pollecki, Paul Causey, and Jim Negelly. We had 2 candidates who were unable to join us, Nathan Jaquez and Mariah Lordson. So we thank you again for your time, and we want to tell folks, for more information on this race and on the candidates, you can visit votersedge.org. There's information there. The Elections Division has also set up multiple drop-off boxes around the county, and for the nearest one to you, you can visit www.cocovote.us, or you can call the office 925-335-7800. There's a number on your screen. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to vote on November 3rd.